Whew, it's hot outside. Okay. The last time that I did a Q&A video, it was the one that I did with my husband. And most of the questions were really for him. How do you feel about your wife's gardening and all of that good stuff? So if you haven't watched that, I think we did that last year. I'm gonna put a link in the description. But today, I figured with a lot of new subscribers that I got and people just finding me for whatever video that I made, I would love to do one. And I asked on Instagram and here as well on my YouTube community posts to send me questions. If you had any questions about my garden, about the things that I do or how I'm doing things, just to leave me those. Sorry, there's a cat right behind you. Not mine. I don't have any cats, but I have a lot of cats in my garden. So I have my list of the questions. I narrowed it down to 21 questions. So we're just gonna go through them as quickly as possible so this video doesn't turn into a 2-hour video. So hopefully you can get to know me and my garden a little bit better. But before we start with all of these questions, I would like to mention that I garden in Zone 5 here in Central Indiana. Officially, if I put my zip code in one of those websites that tell you your gardening zone, it will tell me that I'm in Zone 6, and that is true, but the town north of me, about 5 minutes from me, is officially in Zone 5. So I am right at the border of 5 and 6. So I am playing it safe and saying that I'm in Zone 5 because a few years ago, I tried a bunch of perennials and shrubs that were hardy to Zone 6 and they all die during the winter. So I'm playing it safe. I'm keeping my Zone 5 just so that you're aware of that. I know I have a lot of people that follow me from Indianapolis, from the city of Indianapolis, and they are really in Zone 6, but I am just about half an hour north of Indianapolis, so Zone 5. My garden is not in a huge piece of land. I don't even have an acre, not even a half, not even a quarter. It is a very, very small urban lot, and I use every single corner that I can. I use containers, I make raised beds. Every single place where I can grow something, whether it's a flower or a vegetable, I'm going to be doing that. So the first questions, and these are not in order of importance, these are just a mix that I just pick up from Instagram and YouTube. What is doing poorly this year for you? I gotta say that I am very disappointed in my cucumbers. Not in the productivity. The hybrid that I am growing this year, I'm growing 2 types, but one of the hybrids that I am growing, Unagli, I think I got the seeds from Johnny's, and I have about 4 or 5 plants in a small area behind all of my raised beds, and I have them growing up on a cattle panel, and they have been producing really, really well for me. They have been giving me lots of fruit. They have been just growing and growing. However, about the middle of July, we're right about the end, so about the last couple of weeks or so, they have been just dying. Like they cannot handle either the heat or they have gotten sick with something. And normally that is the case with a lot of cucumbers. But I purchased these seeds, these hybrid seeds, because I was told they were really good for my really, really hot summers here in Indiana. So I don't know if you guys have any recommendation for a great productive cucumber plant, let me know because I would love to try them. And like I said, it's not that cucumbers don't do well here. They all do kind of bad at around this time of year, but I was really expecting that variety to do way better than what it is doing now. And it is what it is. I already have other cucumber plants going in other areas of the garden because I knew that, you know, this could happen. It's just, I don't know, a little bit of a disappointment in that case. What is something you haven't grown yet but would like to try? There are a lot of things that I cannot grow here just because of where I live. Zone 5 is not really a place where I can grow tropicals. I would love to grow mangoes, avocados. One of the things that I think that I'm going to try maybe next year, but I'm definitely going to keep my eyes open this year for a nice plant, will be figs. And I have been looking, there is one variety, when I went to cultivate, there was one variety that I was told, Chicago Hardy, I believe. I still have to bring it inside. Some people leave it outside, dies to the ground level, and I am not well educated when it comes to growing figs in my Zone 5, but if any of you are growing some or have experience growing some about my zone, please let me know in the comments because I would love any recommendations. Can you explain how you grew 2 tomatoes on one vine? Let me rephrase this question. I am not growing 2 types of tomatoes from one vine. I am growing 2 types of tomatoes from one root system, basically one plant, 2 types of tomatoes. And each tomato variety, which I have 2, are growing in their own vines. So it's not just one vine, it's a bunch of vines. I did a really fun experiment this spring by grafting 2 tomato plants. Sungolds, which are a beautiful cherry type, and also Dr. Witches. I basically grafted Dr. Witches onto a Sungold plant, and I treated them just like I did any other tomato. And you guys, I have been harvesting quite a lot of fruit from that plant. I started harvesting the cherries first, and then the Dr. Witches started ripening as well. They kept their own time as far as reaching maturity, and I'm happy. I am really happy. When I posted that video about trying that, and when I put those or that one plant in the container, I mentioned that I wasn't doing it for the science, or or because I wanted like a super fancy type of tomatoes. I just wanted to do it to see if I could get 2 types of tomatoes from one plant, and it works. It really works, and I am very excited about that. What is doing best in the garden this season or this year? My tomatoes, for sure. I mentioned before that last year, 2022, it was the worst year for me for tomatoes. The weather didn't play a huge factor. It was just really hard for me to grow the tomatoes. All the 41 plants that I had, they did very poorly. Half of them died. The ones that I still had living, they struggled to produce. I still had tomatoes, but I didn't have enough tomatoes to can, because that's one of the main reasons why I'm growing a bunch of tomatoes this year, or any of the past years, because I like to keep some of the fruit. I like to can them. But definitely the tomatoes are thriving this year. I have been harvesting quite a lot already. They started producing in the middle of July, which was a huge plus for me. And I'm happy. My tomatoes, like I said, I told myself this year was going to be the best year for tomatoes, and I'm loving it. The cages that my husband built for those tomatoes, I showed you that early in the spring, how he did that. They are definitely way too small right about now, and I still have to go for August and September. I am kind of attaching the vines anywhere where I can, and I just love it. The problem now is that the cages are too small for the tomatoes, but honestly that's a great problem to have, because the tomatoes are just loving it this year. What is the one tool and one piece of advice you would recommend for beginner gardeners out there? This is really hard. This question is really hard to narrow it down. If I have to recommend one tool for beginner gardeners out there, it will definitely, hands down, will have to be my hose reel from HOSELINK USA. I have 2 of those. A couple of years ago, that's when I had my first one. Last year I got the other one, the charcoal one, and I love those, you guys. If you have a garden, if you have containers or small flower garden, you know how hard it is to be bothering yourself with moving the hose, untangling everything, trying to get that all looking nice for when you're not using it. And it's just a struggle, honestly. And you don't know how much you need one of those hose reels until you get one. Honestly, you have one and you realize just how easier it is for you to handling hoses when you need to water your containers or your raised beds. I love mine, honestly. I absolutely love mine. And when we move from this house, if we ever move, those things are coming with me. I mean, absolutely, they're coming with me. And I love them. I honestly love them. And my one piece of advice will be to educate yourself. Watch YouTube videos, go to the library, rent yourself some books. If you don't have the money to buy the books, get yourself the books from the library. It is so easy for us nowadays to learn something, to be educated about a certain subject. If you want to grow vegetables, watch people who are growing vegetables. If you want to know how to start from seed, get a book about starting from seed. If you want to know how to grow fruit trees in containers, follow the people who are doing this. The education part, honestly, for me has been huge for how well my garden is doing. Because if you have ever looked into how to do something, there's a million ways on how to garden. There's a million ways on how you can plant a tomato. But from watching people on how they're doing things in their own garden, you can pick up tips and you can pick up a certain things that you can do in your own garden, and that way you develop your own techniques that work for you. Your nasturtiums are amazing. How do you do that? The nasturtiums are crazy this year, but you know what? Let me show you because I'm looking at it right now. The nasturtiums are crazy. They are really thriving in this spot, you guys. I don't do anything special for them. I haven't even fertilized them, because if you fertilize your nasturtiums, they're going to give you a bunch of foliage, which, if you don't mind, I mean, I don't mind the foliage, honestly. If I didn't get any blooms from these nasturtiums, I would not mind. But if you want blooms, you really don't want to fertilize your nasturtiums too much. So these beds, these planters that I have here, these are the Core 10 steel beds that I have. And the soil here, I ordered the soil from one of my local landscape companies. They have a mix that I absolutely love here in Indianapolis, and I fill these containers, these planters, the bottom with a bunch of dead twigs, branches, dead perennials, trimmings that I have, everything healthy, of course, that will normally decay organically. And I added about half of the top of these planters with beautiful rich soil from that landscaping company. And I mean, this is what they're doing. But also it could be that these nasturtiums just grow that way. These are all new nasturtiums. These nasturtiums are tiptoe mahogany from Baker Creeks. I got the seeds from Baker Creeks, and I mean, they're all thriving. So it could be a combination of both great plants and great soil. Like I said, I have not fertilized them yet, but I mean, do I need to? Look at this. These are beautiful. It's beautiful. In the past, I mentioned that nasturtiums for me in full sun don't do really well, and I know that's 100% the case. This nasturtium right here is the same type of nasturtium on the other side. And yes, these are on smaller containers, but I already had to trim this nasturtium once because it was already looking like it was dying. And these guys right here on this container get full sun, like literally all day. Those over there get a little bit of evening sun shade. Those over there on the planters get a little bit of evening shade, so they don't get the full sun all day. But these do, and you can tell they're smaller. They're looking a lot better, but that's because I already trimmed them once this season, which I haven't done for those nasturtiums on the other side. But I am planning to save a bunch of seeds from these nasturtiums. If you have to move, what 5 plants would you dig up and bring with you? This is also one of those hard questions. For sure, my hardy hibiscus, the red one, which I can't remember the name, I love that shrub. It is huge now. It's on its 3rd year, I believe. The color of those blooms, it's just, I mean, it gets me every summer. So I will definitely dig that one. I will dig my Annabelles, which are right behind me, because those have a sentimental value to me. And I will also dig my honeysuckle because, my gosh, I love the honeysuckle. Even though it had some problems this year with aphids, that guy is coming with me. I don't care what my husband said. I can definitely dig that guy and take it with me. I will take my variegated honeysuckle that I have growing with the obelisk. I will probably just dig the whole thing with the obelisk and take that with me. That will be hard because the obelisk is kind of heavy. It's on the heavy side, but they're both coming with me. And the last one will have to be my Bathsheba David Austin rose that I just got this year. I actually got 2, but the one that is growing on the trellis, you guys, that thing is loving it there. A bunch of you have asked me what I'm going to do with that rose during the winter because, you know, what if it doesn't quite make it? I'm hoping that because of the container, the planter that I have there is bottomless. It's really laying on top of the ground. I'm hoping that that helps, and also it's against the garage, so maybe there is some sort of extra protection. Fingers crossed. I'm definitely going to have to update you on how that rose is doing next year there. But those will be my 5 plants that are coming with me. I mean, honestly, if we ever move from this place, I was talking to another friend who's moving, it will be really hard to leave everything behind because, my goodness, my boxwoods that I'm looking right now, my hedges, I grew those guys from like when they were little, and I get attached to my plants. I don't know, probably shouldn't do that, but I get very, very attached to my plants. What is your favorite area of your garden and why? Honestly, this stepping stone path that I made by myself, and it has been years in the making, is probably my favorite part of this garden. Why? It doesn't really require a lot of maintenance from me, other than keeping my stepping stone area free of weeds, because I do have weeds. Other than that, just a little bit of water. I have irrigation on it now, and it's just, I mean, I don't know, I just love it. This Annabelle hydrangea is the one that I mentioned that I will take with me. I love it. It is done blooming, but the blooms, when they are getting old, they get this darker, muted green color. And I didn't think that I would love that much in my garden, but they just look amazing. I mean, they just look amazing. This is one of the perennials that I'm going to have to divide this fall, and hopefully I can show you that. It's already expanded. It has multiplied everywhere. And I did come here a few weeks ago. I came here and I had one of those little fences underneath, because this thing was just everywhere over here, and it was blocking the path. But this path, I love it. How do you maintain the lawn grass? Honestly, I don't spray, I don't fertilize, I don't do anything to the grass. I have a teenager who loves to mow the lawn, so that's always a plus in my house, and I don't have to worry about doing that. And honestly, my husband is the one who will be doing it anyway. But I don't really do anything. It is what it is. How long have you been gardening? I started gardening about 2004, which is when I got married. I moved to a house with my husband where there was nothing. It was literally just grass. I found myself with nothing to do. I didn't have a job at the time, so I just, went to the garden store and pick up a few plants, put them in containers. I had no idea. I didn't even know the difference between an annual or a perennial or shade plants with full sun plants, and I learned a lot by killing a lot of plants, because that's really honestly the only way that you're going to learn, by practicing every year. How old is your garden you have right now in your current home? We moved here about 8 years ago or so, and when we moved here there was nothing but grass, absolutely nothing. We had a chain link fence around the property. I am sure that they have dogs here. There was nothing but grass, and it was, and it is, a fixer-upper for us. If you guys are new here, I have mentioned this in past videos. This is a fixer-upper, so we are fixing it, renovated it as we live in it, basically, and as the budget and time allows. And it's taking time, but just like the garden, it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in one season. It's gonna take us still a few years to go. Anyway, this garden is about 8 years old, and it has been a joy working and designing and maintaining this garden. What is the hardest thing about gardening in Zone 5 besides the snow? Honestly, I love the snow. I didn't grow up with the snow. I found the snow when I was 16 years old, and I fell in love with it. Before that, I grew up in a tropical climate, and I didn't know what snow was, or those types of temperatures for that matter. I love snow, and I love where I live. The hardest thing would be not being able to grow things like mangoes or avocados or limes where I live. And yes, I know that I could probably get some plants, take them inside. I could probably get a greenhouse. It's just not the way that I want to do things anyway. I don't have the space, and honestly, I don't have the time. The hardest part will be not being able to come outside and grab a mandarin or a mango from the trees. When you started planting ornamentals around your home, did you know what direction you were going in, or you started having fun making it look nice? Yes and no. There are certain things that I just knew where I wanted them, because I had this picture in my mind of what I wanted those things to be. For example, my boxwoods. The boxwood hedges that I have made, I know that I started with tiny boxwoods, and they have grown throughout the years, and they have become beautiful hedges that I love. There are other things that I purchased because honestly, I went to the garden store, I found the plant or the shrub, and I fell in love with it. And I didn't really have a plan for where to put it. That pretty much happens about 90% of the time, honestly, whenever I buy new plants. I don't always have a plan where I'm going to put them, but I know they're going to be great wherever that is. So one of the first plants that hopefully I can show you on the screen, I bought this viburnum, and I cannot find the tag or the information on this, but that was one of the first big shrubs that I planted in my garden. It was blooming when I found it, when I purchased it. So of course I fell in love with it. And I didn't really have the best spot. I planted it in my backyard 3 times, and by the 3rd time, which is where it is right now, that's where I left it. Right now it works absolutely great for where it is, but before that, the 2 places where I had it before, I had no clue. And sometimes I have an idea on how things are going to work out, but sometimes the plants have their own ideas, and sometimes that's how it goes. Have you ever spent very little money on a plant and been surprised, and also the opposite, spent a lot of money and got disappointed? Absolutely. The honeysuckle that I love on that diamond trellis on the wall, I paid $5 on a clearance, and I didn't really expect anything from it. I thought, I paid $5 for this thing. If it works, great. If not, it's only $5. But that thing is amazing, and it's coming with me whenever I move. Like I said, I just absolutely love that. And vice versa, I have paid a lot of money for things that are grown, that are looking amazing, and they make it into my garden, and for some reason they just die. So that happens all the time. Are your favorite tomatoes last year still your favorite this year? Absolutely. There are only 2 reasons why I have tomatoes growing this year here in my garden. I think that I counted them the other day. I think I have like 36, 37 tomatoes, something like that. If they are here, it's because 1, they are my favorite and they have a place here for me, or 2, because they're new and I want to see how they do. So if I have a tomato here that is not doing well, it's because it's more than likely new, and it's probably not gonna come back next year, unfortunately. Because I don't really have a lot of space, I don't have the luxury to grow a bunch of things that I know that are not going to do well. And that's why I'm asking for recommendations for my cucumbers, because I would really love a plant that just produces constantly and it doesn't get sick right away. But the tomatoes, like I said, this year are doing amazing. I know you said before that Sunsugar was your favorite cherry tomato, and this year you tried Sungolds. Which one is the best? I am trying Sungolds for the first time this year, and from talking to people, I know that they say that Sungold is one of the best cherries that they have ever tasted, yada yada. I gotta say that Sunsugars are my favorite, but I have never tried them before against Sungold until this year. I have Sunsugars growing right over here. I mean, I have them in other places as well, but I wanted to do a side-by-side, even though Sunsugars get a little bit of less sun compared to the Sungolds over here. So I have Sunsugars and I have Sungolds. Both plants are doing amazing. Both plants do produce a lot of food, a lot of cherries, and they're both great. However, in my personal opinion, Sunsugars are by far the best. And I don't know if it's because I have grown attached to Sunsugar and Sungolds just, I don't know. But I did a test already, and Sunsugars are by far my favorite. Now, some of you mentioned that you had problems really finding that flavor with Sungolds or Sunsugars, and you weren't sure if you were maybe harvesting at the wrong time. Let me show you what I do. These guys right here are Sunsugars, and these look like they're almost ready. And when they're getting ready, they turn this yellow color. However, if you wanna taste the very, very concentrated sweet flavor of them, you have to wait until they start turning a shade of orange, like this one. Let me show you the comparison. It's probably something that you're just gonna have to practice. This one is not quite ready, but this one, this almost orange color, This one is definitely ready. That's when I pick them. That's really when you are going to taste the very, very sweet flavor of Sunsugars. And that is also very true for Sungolds. I just prefer Sunsugars. The lid that you can get as an accessory for your green stock also works really well when you're forgetting your coffee cups here from the days before. Am I the only one that does this, that I forget all of my coffee cups like everywhere? I know I'm not the only one. If you could garden in any zone, which one would you choose? I thought a lot about this before because I mentioned to my husband, if we ever move, it would have to be to a warmer zone. There is no way that I'm moving to garden zone 4 or 3. I mean, no offense to those people who live in those zones, but that would be hard to garden. And honestly, kudos to you if you're gardening in zone 4 or 3, because those are very, very short seasons, I will think. Zone 7 is probably the sweet spot for me. And I know that a lot of you are in zone 7 and dahlias come back for you, some elephant ears come back for you, but you still get snow here and there. Not as hard as we do probably, but zone 7 is probably the sweet spot for me. If you were starting your garden today, what would you do differently and why? I will say that I would like to know where a plant is going before I buy it. But honestly, I think that it's easier said than done because it happens to every single one of us, you guys. We go to the garden center, we see something blooming, we want it. It doesn't matter if we have a place for it, we want it. And I think that's just the beauty of gardening, that you get to do that for yourself. If I have to design a garden before and make sure that I buy every single perennial or every single shrub where it's going to be, I don't think that I will ever be ready, because most of the time I don't have the budget to buy everything at once. So if I have to prepare a plan and buy a plant here and there as needed, I don't know that I will be able to do that. So I would like to think that I will be a lot smarter whenever I buy the plants if I had to start over for this garden, but that probably wouldn't be the case. I enjoy gardening and I also enjoy going and buying the plants, and I think that's just part of it, honestly. That's it for this video, you guys, before I start melting out here. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you got to know me and my garden a little bit better. And if you have any questions regarding what I said or what I talk about, just let me know in the comments. I'll do my best. I always try to do my best to answer any of your questions, or at least give you a like, making sure that you guys notice that I saw your comment. But sometimes I get a lot of comments. I hope that you guys enjoy this video, and I will see you until the next time.